So we're going to introduce yourself first.
Yeah, can do. My name is Robert Poole. I'm the men's volleyball head coach here at the University of Charleston. And I'm excited to be in this interview today.
Yes, perfect. So my first question is, what would you say your philosophy for coaching is, and how does it develop your players both athletically and physically?
For me, I look at coaching more of a teaching mentality. So you've got this idea of high performance, and with high performance you get stress. Mm-hmm. And so the best way to cope with stressful situations is to have a plan, have some sort of procedure, some sort of structure that you're going to follow day in, day out when you walk into a practice. And so for me, what I'm trying to teach, what I'm trying to always do is make sure I'm giving guys information, trying to teach them how to manage emotions, how to manage a game situation. And it's also about investing in them as a person. Right. So that's where it comes into in life situations. You're going to have stress that's not related to volleyball. You're going to have stress that's related to volleyball. And it's how do we manage that? And how do we make sure that everyone feels like they're heard and that they feel like they're part of that same team?
Right.
So if I've got 21 guys on my roster right now, each and every one of them has to feel connected to what we're doing as a group, connected to what their goals are. And then it's about us investing in them as individuals. And that's how we get the best performance. That's how we get the best outcome for the team. We are not the most physical team. You know, the guys who play are 6'9" and we're about 6'3". But what makes us good is that everyone buys into that team mentality, and they also know that they fit into roles within that squad.
The team culture, yeah, that's awesome. The second one is, could you give an example of a challenging circumstance that you've successfully handled and explain how you handle other disagreements or difficulties within the team this year?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a new head coach. This is my first year running a program, ever. So there's a lot of challenges that come with that, and as a new head coach, you're going to always face moments where, you know, I'm having to not necessarily defend, you know, the way that we play and the style, but you have to be able to explain it. If a player can know why, I can go into, you know, more detail and I can gain their trust. And so, you know, we had a moment in the fall where a few of our leaders came to us and were, you know, just trying to ask questions about what the program direction was going in, and, you know, what sort of style and why we wanted to play in our style and why we were doing things a certain way. And, you know, for me, I had a choice at that moment where I could have taken it personally and gone, hey, these guys are coming at me. It's, you know, they don't like me. It's this. Or for me, what I ended up doing, which I'm really grateful for, was just listening to what they had to say. Yeah. And just in that moment, I could hear that they were just wanting to have clarification. They wanted to know where this program was going, and that I aligned with them. And we just managed it by listening. Yeah. And we opened up that leadership meeting, and I said, hey, is there any thoughts that you guys had? And it was just them talking for 30 minutes and us listening, writing notes, and we managed to work together moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm sure that went a long way. What techniques do you use to maintain athletes' motivation throughout the season, specifically when things get tough mentally?
I think the mental side of the game, so having played at a high level professionally, like when you start to dissociate from a team, it's when you don't feel like you're valued. And you don't feel like you're going to be playing, you don't feel like, you know, I'm there, I'm a big part of what we're doing. And so for me, one of the biggest techniques that I've learned is to mix sixes. So we don't actually do starters versus non-starters, ever. Good. We just mix in the groups, because then what it means is that it's not forming necessarily a connection between two players, but you're having to run a whole system. Okay, and then we stat practices so we can see where guys are at numbers wise. If we're mixing, everyone should have a pretty equal distribution, so I can kind of see, okay, who's influencing the game. You know, we can make sure that we then get guys in, so when I'm looking at the first person off the bench, that's going to be the guy that's performing, you know, consistently. Now, if that guy's performing consistently in practices, they're probably moving up into that starting role. So it's just knowing that we can be a bit more objective by tracking a little bit more numbers wise. But it's also, you know, for me, I invest in the players. I want them coming in for video meetings. I want them to feel like whether they're the first guy on the list or the 20 whatever guy on the list, they can still come to me and we'll go through video, or we'll invest that same way that I would, whether they were the first guy on the court or, you know.
Yeah, that sixes with mixed, yeah, that's really nice. Yeah. Could you describe a moment of success in your career that took you to the next level and what made it significant?
I think for me, I've been fortunate. So I was able to play professionally for a few years, and that was not great for me. Like my mental health suffered because of that, and it's made me a better coach, right? And that's kind of one of the experiences that it was. The second was when I stopped playing professionally, I was looking for jobs. I was looking to come out to the States and coach, and I had someone reach out to me and say, hey, I need an assistant coach in Japan. And I thought they were joking. Like, I got the text, I was like, you're not talking about me, right? This is professional men's coaching a VNL player of the year in that team. I was like, he's just joking with me, messing around. And I got invited out there, and just to watch that whole program be run. And it was run with the intention of, we are not just coming in here with professional players and just letting them go and play. We're still trying to develop them. We're still trying to make sure they understand the system, make sure that they feel connected to what we're doing. And the conversations we had, like for instance, I learned that it was during COVID, and there were vaccinations that were going to happen, and you've got to think of, okay, if a guy gets vaccinated, that could be 2-3 days out.
Right.
Now you're playing the difference between the psychological aspect of, I want this vaccine, the health benefits, the mental health of the athletes and them being in control, or do you say, hey, no, we're going to wait till after season, and that was something that popped up, and you've got all of these little things that you learn of how to treat someone like a person first, and that's only going to benefit you when you try to build the trust on the court as well. And that was one of the biggest things I learned in that situation.
Yeah. How long were you in Japan for?
So I coached in Japan for a year. So we were in the V League. We actually won the regular season. We lost the playoff final to Mazersky, who was if anyone knows volleyball, he was the 2012 Olympic gold medalist for Russia. He basically won Russia won Russia the gold medal that year. He moved from middle to opposite in that game, and he absolutely destroyed. I can't remember who he played. I think it was Italy or something like that. But it was like, he plays for them. We had Bartosz Kurek, who's the Polish right side, playing for us, and we had Japanese national team players in there as well. It was huge. So we won the cup. We finished second in the league because of the playoff final. But you're literally looking at small, minute details in players' techniques to try to make them more efficient. And also, if you're looking at the system on the other side, I'm now having to find a weakness in a player, like that's minute, minuscule.
Yeah, a very small one to find. Right.
So you can bring that sort of thought process and the analysis side of the game to college, and it's a lot easier because the developmental side is still very much, large scale. So I'm looking at bigger things, very simple sort of mechanics fixing, and that's a lot easier to kind of show guys than the smaller details.
Right. Wow. How would you say you encourage the competitive side of sports with maintaining the importance of character development and sportsmanship?
I think they both go hand in hand. So you can be competitive without stepping over the mark. And that's something I'm still, learning myself. There were a few games that, against Harvard, I was livid half the time because there's certain rules that you have within the game, and if they're not followed, as a coach, you're trying to be there to communicate with the referees. And that's what I say to my guys is, let me do the communication with the referees. Let me handle that so that you can focus that competitive drive within what you're doing on the court and within that whole group. And that way it maintains that sort of flow, that rhythm of, hey, we might be hard done by, but we're keeping it here rather than letting our emotions spill out onto the court and spill out, into the environment. I think that's always big, is that just knowing that, you have your team's back. And then it's also, trying to also foster that in practice, that if there is something that happens and guys get those emotions going, it's just letting them talk and say, hey, once you leave this gym, we're all a team.
Okay, right.
Or once we mix the sixes, you're now playing with that guy that you were then frustrated with 2 minutes ago. And it's all part of it, right? You're going to have that moment where you want to win. But it's about knowing that the way to winning is playing good volleyball, and you need 6 players on a court. Or 7 if you got the live included, to be able to play that, and 21 if you want to play that in a gym consistently.
Yeah, right. How do you handle parents' opinions and worries, and what role do you think they should play in your program?
I think what we always try to do is have the guys be open to talking to us. So I don't really deal a lot with parents.
Okay, that's good.
Some parents will be able to contact me, and it's more so just through the recruiting process. And most of them don't, because what we do is we encourage all of our guys, if you have a problem, come and speak to me. Like, I'm more than happy to listen, and I think that's always the big thing is I want them to talk first. I want to know what the issue is. I want to hear it from their perspective, and then you can start to solve those issues. And I think, you know, most parents, when you talk about that and you talk to parents, what they want to see is their child grow up. And for me, college was the place that I grew up and learned how to talk, you know, about myself and how to express my opinions and do all the rest of that. And I think it's huge that you express that to the parents. So through recruiting, I'm saying, hey, I want the guys to come and talk to me. I want, you know, they're going to be starting to manage their own relationships. They're going to start to manage the situations that are tough. And I think, you know, parents will, you know, most of the time, if they have an issue, they'll talk through the child. You know, you know, I'll have an athlete come to me, and the athlete will say, hey, look, my parents are a little bit worried about this. And so it's just, if they want to have a conversation, I'm always open to that. But most of the time we haven't had to have that, because it's just relating to the athlete and going, hey, you want your child, I call it child, but you want your offspring to learn to talk for themselves, communicate, because in life you're not going to be able to cover all of their problems.
No, for sure.
And so my job is also to help them deal with those problems as well.
Right. When picking captains, what specific traits are you looking for in a player, and do you think that teams themselves should be involved in like choosing one, picking one?
So I'm going to ask you a question now. In your experiences, when have captains been chosen?
When have they been chosen?
Yeah.
Like by who, or just when?
Just when?
Towards the beginning.
Right. So right off the bat.
Away. Yeah.
So you have no idea how this whole group's interacting.
Right.
And you're going, hey, you're going to lead this group of random people you've never met.
Yeah.
That's daunting to me. Like, I'm looking at that going, I'm having to do that, and I'm still trying to figure out everyone in that
And that's
moment.
considered normal now. A lot of teams do that. Yeah.
For me, I leave it 4 weeks.
That's good.
We don't choose captains. We will just watch. So we'll watch, you know, the guys interacting as much as we can. We'll, you know, see them in the cafeteria and who's kind of leading the conversation, who's caring for the rest of them around them. Like this year we have a leadership group of 7 people.
Okay.
And they've all been selected for different reasons. So, you know, we've got one of my, you know, seniors is really good at communicating with the younger group.
Okay.
And so we decided not to have someone from our freshman class in the group, because this person was very good at relating anything, you know, that the younger guys wanted. And it's not necessarily perfect, but what it allowed was that they could have a voice, and I could hear what they were communicating about a little bit more through this senior. I've got some guys that are in that leadership group that are there to keep everyone straight. And it's more of this is the path we're on, you've got to be on board. There's other guys there that are there to be the sort of cheerleader, the guys that's going to pick people up when they're struggling. And for me, you can't do that with one captain or 2 captains. Like, it's a whole unit. You have to have people bought in, and you've got so many different individuals in a group, you have to have a collective that are going to represent that whole group. So for me, leaving it 4 weeks is good, because I will also ask the team, like in our first sort of season meeting after 4 weeks, I say, who do you think represents the program? It's not who do you think is going to lead.
Okay.
Who represents what you think this program should be?
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that.
And so you get a feel, you get these guys coming to you and saying, I think it's this guy, and you actually look and you go, pretty much every single name that you see is the guys that you pick.
Yeah, you're agreeing, yeah. Oh, that's nice. My last question is, what advice would you give to anyone thinking about becoming a coach and starting that process?
I think it's always about contacts and learning. Like, I thought I understood a lot about the game, and, you know, as a player growing up, I was lucky enough to have played middle when I was younger. Like, I played outside through college. I played opposite through college. I was a libero in professional volleyball for a game, which was just because of an injury, right? And all of these random things that happen, and you don't know the game until you see it from through someone else's eyes, some other player's perspective. So it's about learning the whole game and asking, you know, if you're a middle, talk to your setters about what they're seeing, what they want to see from your position, and try to understand what they're looking for to be the most efficient. And then that helps you transition into coaching, because as a coach, you know, you might turn around and go, hey, I want to coach. Great. I need someone to work with the receivers.
Yeah.
And now you're having to coach a position you've never played.
Right.
And you're having to try and get buy-in and a little bit of that, you know, trust from those athletes in a position you've never played.
Yeah.
And so I think it's always about learning the game and communicating. Like, I have guys that come into my office that I'll break it down the same way that I break down for my professional athletes. And it's just talking about, okay, body mechanics, the same sort of efficiency, so that they learn how to kind of manage their own position and also manage what they're seeing on film. And now my players can break it down for themselves. I've got one of my athletes comes into my setting meetings. He's not a setter, but he wants to know what we're talking about in the setting meetings because he wants to be a coach.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm
That's
like,
nice.
if that's what you want to do, like, or at least in the future, he's, you know, wants to go and play for a little bit for a while. But if it's in the thought of the future, my job is to try to foster this and grow it. And if someone asks me a question, like, I've got one of the women's development players in my practices a lot, and we're having these conversations, you know, where it's like, why are you doing this? What are you? And it's just, I could take that game personally. Like, are they trying to say I'm doing it wrong, or actually they're just wanting to know? Trying to understand, and it's only going to help them learn. And you know, when you've, as an athlete, you've got undivided attention of a coach, someone that has gone through the process, someone that has to, you know, teach in that environment. And so you can ask any questions you want because the coach wants to give you that information. And this is the place that I learned the most about volleyball, and that's why I've come back, is because I want to give it back to someone else. So that's basically the way that I kind of look at these things.
That's awesome. Well, thank you.